Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. This picture is entirely lit by the subject itself. I've used electroluminescent wire to light paint the illusion of light escaping from a bottle. However, setting up an image like this can be tricky. So I've used a couple of techniques to help things along a little. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so to start with the table, what I'm going to do is just place a piece of mount board on here, just to give me a surface. There we are, so just a piece of black mount board there. So the next thing to do would be to bring up the subject. Now the subject is electroluminescent wire, which is what this is. And I got this from Amazon. You can get it from just about anywhere these days. And it's powered from a couple of AA cells just in this power pack. So if I just turn this on, I doubt if you can actually see the difference between it being on and off. It is very dim, and that's one of the challenges of doing this type of light painting. Okay, just turn that off. So I'll come back to that in a moment. So the next thing would be some form of mount for the bottle. I had the bottle at the back here. So what I've got is a clamp, and in that clamp I've just placed a piece of aluminium tube, and I'm just going to put that on the back of the table here, just like this. There we are. So I'll just place the rest of the clamp together. So we just pop this in here, something like that. So that just brings me to the bottle, just a normal glass bottle really, just with a stopper in the top. So I'll just put that in the clamp here, and I'm just going to clamp it at the very end, just like that. Now obviously this clamp will be visible in the picture, but there's a little trick you can use to make that disappear, which I'll come to a bit later. Right, I'll just place the cork about there. So with the bottle all clamped in position, the next thing to do would be to actually place another clamp on it. So what I'm going to do is just get another lab stand. I'm just going to carefully place this around the bottle, something like that. Now the idea for this, or the reason for it, will become a little clearer as we go on. There we are. So now with all that in place, what I'm actually going to do is just take this one away. Now the reason I did that will become clear a little later. It's all to do with getting rid of the clamp. Right, so the next thing to do would be just to address the background here. And for that, I'm just going to use this stand. So I'll just place that about there. Put the arm up. Like that. And on here, I'm just going to place some black cloth. This will form the background. There. Okay. So with all that now in position, next thing to do would be to sort out the camera position. So I'm using this medium format camera with an 80mm lens on the front of it. Now if you're using a full frame camera, the equivalent of that would be about a 50mm. You don't need anything specific to do this. It's just that this will give me a wider view than a short telephoto. So I'll just place the camera at the front here. The camera is already tethered into Capture One software. There we are. I'll just wind that up a little on the center column. There we go, to somewhere around there. Should do it, I think. Okay, so with all that, I can now turn the camera on. There we are. So all the settings that I have on the camera now appear on the software here. So this is how it's set at the moment. It's in full manual mode. I've got a shutter speed of 125th of a second, ISO 100, and an aperture of f8. Okay, so at those settings, the house lights aren't going to have much of an effect on the subject. If I just grab an image, there you go, you can see there's the odd highlight in the glass, but the rest of it is non-existent. Now normally, if you're using a studio flash or something similar, that is what you'd want. But in this case, what I actually need is enough time to manipulate the electroluminescent wire during the exposure. So I need quite a long exposure. So I'm going to change the settings that I have on the camera to give me a much longer exposure. The downside of that, of course, is that I will need to turn the house lights out when I actually come to take the picture. Okay, so this is all a bit of guesswork, but the first thing I'm going to do is change the sensitivity to the lowest that's available. Now on this camera, that happens to be 50 ISO. As for the shutter speed, I'm going to try for 20 seconds as a starting point. I'll leave the aperture where it is for the time being. Okay, so the next thing to do would be just to focus it up and take a test image. So I'll just look down the waist level finder here and focus the lens. So about there somewhere should do me, I think. Okay, so with all that done, next thing to do would just be to take a test exposure. So I'm going to turn on the electroluminescent wire and I'll turn the house lights out and we'll do a test. Okay, so as an initial test, I think that's worked pretty well. We can see the wire here. We've got a little bit of colour in there, which is all working quite well. Just have a look at the focus on the end of the bottle there. And I think that needs to be adjusted a little. It's not quite right. I think the focus point is back here somewhere instead of on the edge where I want it. So what I'll do is turn the house lights back on and we'll just sort the focusing out. So to sort the focusing out, I prefer to do that with live view through the software here. So I'll just start up that. We'll just make that a bit bigger. And I'll just focus in on this part of the bottle here. So just move that around. There we are. And now I can use the controls here just to move the focus point. There we go, that's getting a bit sharper. That's the sort of thing I want now. I'll just take it past the point I want and go back to it. That way I know I'm definitely in the right place. There we are. So this is all very sharp now. Good. So with that exercise done, I can get rid of live view. The exposure looks about right. So now I just need to set it all up. So what I'm going to do is initially just fill the bottle with the cable. So I'll just poke this in here and fill the bottle up. There we are. So with the bottle now full of the cable, what I can do is turn out the lights, then I can trigger the camera and we'll remove this and bring it out down onto the table. Okay, so with the house lights out, what I'm going to do is start this moving and then I'll open the shutter and then we'll just pull this out and put it down on the table like this. I've got 20 seconds to do this, remember. There we go. And that's it, the shutter's closed. And there we go. And this is what we've captured. And at first look, that doesn't seem to be too bad at all. I'm getting the right sort of diffusion coming out of the end of the bottle through moving the electroluminescent wire. but I think the actual depth of field that I'm achieving in here is actually too big. What I want is something very narrow, focusing just on the neck of the bottle here. So what I'm going to do is change the aperture. Now at the moment the aperture is f8. So if I change that from f8 to 2.8, that's a 3-stop change. So in order to compensate for that, I'm going to need to change the shutter speed. 10 seconds would be 1 stop, 5 seconds would be 2 stops. I don't think I can go any slower than that. But this time, because I've only got 5 seconds, what I'm actually going to do is not push all of the cable into the bottle. So I'll just put part of it in like that. And the other thing is, I have obviously very white hands, so I'm just going to use some black gloves here, just to stop my hands showing up in the image. There we are. So with that, I'll turn the lights out and we'll give it another try. Okay, so just remembering that I've only got 5 seconds this time, so I'm just going to have to make sure it's all just in place. I'll trigger the camera and start moving the cable. Okay, we'll see what it looks like this time. Yes, that's all looking pretty good. So now I've got the bottle here, I've got the focus point about right, and I've also got the depth of field correct. If I look at what I had before, this is what we had before, this is what I've got now. It's a bit brighter, obviously, in effect 1 stop more exposure, which I don't think is hurting the thing at all. I think that's pretty good. Good. Okay, so with that now captured, the next thing to do is to sort out where the stands are at the back and to get rid of the clamp that I mentioned earlier. So the way I'm going to do that is put the original clamp, which I had at the back of the bottle here, back on. Now I'm going to do this in such a way that I don't disturb the bottle at all. So the bottle is still being supported by the other clamp at the moment. So I'll just get that in about the right place. And then we'll tighten everything up. There we are. So with that one on, I can now take the other one away. So we'll just undo that very gently. And we can take that right out of the way. And I'll just use another piece of black cloth just to go over the stand at the back. Okay, so now with that in place, I should be able to merge those two together in Photoshop and end up with just the bottle and no clamp. I'll show you what I mean a bit later. Okay, so we'll just reset this. So I'll push some of the electroluminescent wire back into the bottle. And once again, we'll turn the lights out and have another go. Okay, so I'm just pressing this down just to make it flat onto the table before I open the shutter. Now I'll open the shutter, not forgetting I've only got 5 seconds, and I'll pull the cable out and off we go. That was a little slow, but we'll see how it looks. Actually, I think that looks quite nice. I might just have another go, so I'll just reset the cable, push that back into the bottle, get everything ready, trigger the camera, and off we go. There. Yes, that's looking very good. I think I might just have one final go. Just reset again, push things back into the bottle. There we are. And get it all moving before I open the shutter. There we are. Excellent. That's just the sort of thing I want. Okay, so with all those images now captured, the next stage would best be to go into Photoshop and combine them together. So here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the 3 images that I think I'm going to go forwards with. So this is the one with the clamp halfway down the bottle. And then I've got this one, which I quite like because it's showing the cork quite nicely. I'm not too sure about this particular line of wire, so I've also included this one, which is a lot more diffuse, but it's actually obscuring part of the cork. So I'm going to use all 3 of these. So the first thing I want to do is just combine all these 3 into one file. So if I just go to File, come down to Scripts, and go down to Load Files into Stack, ask it to add the open files, and just click on OK. That will make me one file with each image on a different layer. So these are the 3 layers that I've got. So I can now just dispense with the camera originals. I've always got those to go back to. And this is what I will be editing. Okay, so the first thing to do is to sort the clamp out. So on this image that's at the top here, if I just reduce the opacity by say 50%, just so I can see through it to the one below, we can see that there's a little difference in where the bottle was. If I just zoom in, make it a little simpler to see, I can now just realign the image on the top here. So just going to the Move tool. So if I move this around, you can see that I can get it in more or less the right place. And for the fine movements, I'll just use the arrow keys on the keyboard. There, that looks aligned. It's only the part of the bottle that's at the very back that I'm bothered about anyway. So with that done, I can now just take the opacity back to 100%. And what I'm actually going to do is just add a mask to this, like so, and just invert that mask. So that's hidden most of this. What I want to do is just bring back the very back of the bottle here, just where you can see the clamp. So with that mask selected, I'll just make sure that white is selected as the foreground colour. We'll grab a paintbrush and just paint on the mask where I want the clamp to disappear. And it should just bring the bottle back in. You do have to be a little careful with this, but you get the idea. There we go. Just bring that round like that. That's the slight difference in the bottle from one to another. There. That's worked quite well. Okay, so now we've got rid of the clamps, I can move on to the rest of the image. So that's what we had before, and that's what we've got now. So I'll just zoom all the way out again. And I want to retain the cork, but I want to actually just get rid of this and replace it with that. So once again, I'll just click on this image, on this layer, select that layer, and I'm going to add a mask to that. I'm just going to invert that one, like so. And once again, white selected as the foreground colour. Pick a paintbrush. This time I'm going to make it quite a lot bigger, I think. Something like that. and I'll just carefully go over where I want the previous image to come through. There we are, and just finally I'm just going to pick a crop. I'm using 16:9 as a specific ratio, as I'll be using this for video, and I'm just going to move the image around a bit until I'm happy. In fact, something like that looks about right to me. I'll click on OK. And there we have it. So with just a few simple techniques, it's possible to have a floating bottle pouring out liquid light onto a table. And I think overall that's worked rather well. Okay, well I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.